everybody. Rachel Went here, Executive Director for the Academy for the Advancement of Animal Chiropractic. We are here today with another podcast for you coming in hot. I know there's a lot of legislative issues going on, so we wanted to go straight to the source to get the updates. We're very excited to have Bharon Hoag with us again from One Chiropractic. So, Bharon, as always, thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Looking forward to our conversation.
For sure. So let's, dive into maybe the state updates, because I'm sure that's what everybody wants to hear first. So the three big ones right now that I'm aware of that are going through some issues are Maine, California, and Texas. So I don't know if you want to just go ahead and tell us what you know, what's happening and what's going on, and then we can move on from there.
Yeah. Well, there's always a lot going on everywhere, but the main states that we have been working on are definitely Texas, California, Maine, and then Washington State. Those are the four states that have been actively working on language to try to create a better framework. I'll kind of go quickly through each one, and then we'll cover kind of a gamut of what's going on across the rest of the country as well. We'll start with Texas. Texas has been very frustrating simply because it's Texas. And everything in Texas operates a bit differently than it does in the rest of the country. There's an amazing group of chiropractors down there that have been organized and working together for years trying to get this done. Currently, it's a referral state requiring a chiropractor or a veterinarian to issue a referral in order for the chiropractor to treat the animal. We've been working extensively trying to change that. There were bills that were introduced. There were bills that pulled. We thought we had an administrative path that we could do through the chiropractic board. A number of things we've tried over the last 4 years, but just recently the vet board came out with a new update to their, it's kind of like their sunset, their scope. And so they went through and modernized, if you will, their language. And in that was a lot of very, very repressive language, restricting the use of modalities, requiring a veterinarian to supervise any type of what they called animal chiropractic or mobilization manipulation. There was just a lot of concerning language in there. Their use of the terminology of chiropractic was really inappropriate. And so that obviously got everyone's attention and created a pretty significant storm over the last month. They got a lot of pressure, even from the governor's office. There's far more in there than what affects chiropractors, but it obviously riled up our base as well, which really got the attention of the chiropractic board, which we were pleased with. They now realize, wait, there's kind of a problem having the vet board regulate chiropractors. And so that's really been our position as an organization, why we've taken this on. As one of the core issues is, as chiropractors, we should never be regulated by anybody but the chiropractic board, period, because nobody else understands us or the services we provide. Therefore, anyone else that regulates us is going to do it incorrectly and create a lot of issues. And we'll just carve Kentucky out, because Kentucky is always just a little bit of a special animal. And so we'll leave that.
Hey, now, we still have direct access. We still have
You
direct
do.
access in
I'm
Kentucky.
saying it with love. I'm just saying, I just pray what happened in Kentucky doesn't happen anywhere else in the country. But so it's that was the primary problem there. So we're excited that we have the attention of the chiropractic board, and the chiropractic board not being okay with it. It's always easier for us to do, whether it be legislative or administrative work, when the chiropractic board is 100% in agreement with what we're asking for. But it is Texas. We'll see. We're the other good thing that we have with us in Texas is Parker University has an animal CE program. They're very motivated. We've been speaking with that group, Dr. Bodner and his team, and everybody seems to be on the same page with what needs to happen in Texas. So I am excited to have a little bit extra help through them and their influence that they have as a higher education facility in the state. And the TCA, we've been working with them. And I want to say this for anyone watching this that might be in Texas or get frustrated with the associations. The reason that my organization took this on is because I truly do understand the burden of the state association taking on an issue that doesn't affect very many of their members. It's very difficult. This work requires us to typically open the scope of practice. That's a very scary thing to do on a state level. Texas is even scarier because in recent history, we had the medical professions coming after chiropractors to remove the term neurological. That was almost an 8-year fight that required legal action going all the way to the Supreme Court of Texas. So there's a little bit of PTSD from the association side to say, hey, we're going to go open up the scope to remove the term human so that we can adjust animals. And their thing is like, we agree with what you're saying, but we can't support opening the scope and going into another 8-year battle with the medical association. So Texas has been a little stickier. I know a lot of animal chiropractors don't really understand that history, that process, and they just look at the association as not caring about animal chiropractic. And that's not it. I've talked with the association many times. They would love to see this language clarified. They're just not going to go into an all-out war with the medical associations over it at this point. So we're trying to be as creative as possible. That's the big hitch we have in Texas, is their scope of practice says chiropractic is for treatment of humans. And the chiropractic board has a hard time seeing anything other than that when that's the first sentence in their scope. So, but I'm happy because the vet association keeps doing stupid crap, or the vet board. And so it's getting the attention of a lot of people, which hopefully will open up conversations with legislators. And if we can find a way to make that change in Texas without having to open Section 801, which is the scope, then I think we'll have a slam dunk. We'll be able to get everybody on the same page and move it forward. So that's where we're at in Texas. I'm encouraged because there is momentum right now because of the actions of the vet board. So we don't have a bill right now, but we're still working with the chiropractic board, hoping to get them 100% on board. Then we'll work with Parker, work with the TCA, and keep navigating that through. So I do feel like we're going to have some movement and momentum because the vets have kind of tried to overreach and it got everybody's attention. So we're kind of excited about that. Any questions on Texas before I move on from your guys' standpoint?
One question, because I know the rules were put in place and then pulled back. So the vet board is definitely just kind of put a pin in that for right now, and they're not going to come back like next meeting or
So
anything.
no, the way that they did have a hearing, and there were a number of
Mhm.
people that testified at the hearing. We submitted written opinion on that. So did a lot of other people. There were 4 issues that we had with their language that they put forward. Number one is their use of the word chiropractic. They're using it wrong. They don't understand the difference between a specific chiropractic adjustment and mobilization. So we have a problem with that. That needs to be educated. So that was brought up. Number 2, the fact that they are now allowing, with the way that this revised language would read, anybody that's considered a contractor. So this is an unlicensed person. This could be someone off the street. This could be anybody, could administer a chiropractic animal adjustment if they were supervised by a vet. Obviously have a systemic problem with that, period. That anybody, one, the vet doesn't have the training and understanding to supervise to understand it, period. Number 2, you could have an unlicensed vet tech or just someone off the street that could do this legally under that language. If this is about safety and efficacy, there's no way that language can sustain. Another element of it that they had in there was the ultimate restriction of any modality, shockwave, any of those types of things, that nobody could do any of that. The vet is the only one that can do those types of modalities. So we did submit all of that. There was a lot of heat that came all the way from the governor to legislators. So all that happened is that one section of the code they've pulled it from that hearing so that they could give more time for comment and possible adjusting. They will be bringing it back up in their July meeting to discuss it. I'm assuming they're going to release a revised version. If they do not release a revised version, they still want to talk about the version they released initially. We'll go right back at it the same way we did now with all the objections. This is where, and this is going to apply to any state. And I don't know if we can get away with this in Texas or not, but we're going to try. The only reason the vet language matters under the vet board is because nowhere else in the law anywhere in Texas does it talk about animal chiropractic. It's the only place. If the chiropractic board rendered an opinion and they just said, we think if you're certified you can do it, it wouldn't matter what's on the vet board side, because the vets don't regulate chiropractors. So it wouldn't, because we're regulated by the chiropractic board. That's why it's so important that in every state the chiropractic scope is not silent to this area of animal chiropractic, because when it is, then it allows anyone else that talks about it to regulate it, because everywhere else in the code is silent. So we're really trying, no matter what they do on their side, because nothing they put in that language ultimately affects us if the chiropractic board weighs in on it and says, here's what we believe, or we believe is in the scope of practice of chiropractic. So, but we are still concerned with their use of that language, and we're concerned that they're going to let unlicensed people do this with the supervision of a profession that doesn't have any training in it either. That's a concern that we would fight either way. So it's not dead. It was just pulled for further review. And then once it gets reviewed again in July, then we'll kind of see where we're at and we'll go back and forth. So depending on where we're at with the chiropractic board, we may or may not have massive opposition, or we may just have opposition that they cannot, the one, they can't use that terminology that way. And number two, they cannot allow unlicensed people to do a service that's already part of a profession that's already predefined. So we'll see what happens there. But that's just kind of where we're at with that right now.
Cool. That sounds good. That's
All
it
right.
for Texas.
All right. That's it for Texas. The rest of them will go a little bit faster.
Just a
California.
couple things. Couple
Oh, yeah,
things.
go ahead. Yeah,
Nothing.
just a couple of things. In California, we have a bill. The bill has been introduced. It's been pulled. It's been reintroduced. It's been pulled. It's been reintroduced. But right now, we're the ones that are somewhat in control of it. I will say I'm so proud of our team in California. The California Chiropractic Association's been great. Their liaisons have been great. Their chair of their legislative committee has been amazing. And we're working very closely with a senator that's very, very motivated to get this done. She has a personal tie to getting this done. Currently, California is a supervision state, which means you have to be under the supervision of a vet. We're obviously trying to get that to where certified individuals can have direct access. There's no referral requirement or anything. But California's California. Again, we just love fighting in these states that are difficult in general. But I will say we have both the House and the Senate that are highly motivated to create language for animals, not just because of us. The PTs have been fighting very hard for years in California to be able to do physical therapy on animals. So there's been a lot of bills that have been introduced over the last 5 to 10 years. So the legislature's kind of tired of dealing with this issue, and the vet board in California is, or vet association rather, in California is just as bad as the vet association in Texas, where they are staunch. Nobody touches an animal unless they're a vet. And so the legislature is pretty tired of that. So there is going to be a pathway. We were supposed to have a hearing just a week and a half ago. It was decided that we were going to pull it because it just so happens that the scope for chiropractic is up for sunset. So it's going to be open anyway. So we pulled our bill to make it part of the sunset bill. So it's not going to be a standalone. We're putting it in the sunset, which means it has to go through. It has to get approved. For those that may not understand legislation, there are some bills that have to be passed and can't be vetoed. And then there are other bills that, don't have to be passed and could just get killed in committee. Sunset's something that has to go through. It's strategy that the legal team and the lobbyist team were like, hey, and even the senator was like, if we do that, then we're guaranteed to be heard and we won't have to play these games. So strategies happening there. We'll rehear that bill under the sunset in July, but I'm optimistic. And as I get into Maine and Washington, I'll explain this, but we may have to make little concessions in California to get it done. But I'm not overly against them, and I'll explain that in a minute. But California, we are moving. We have great support from the association. We have support now from the legislature. Everybody wants to see this get done because they're tired of talking about it in California. So I am very optimistic we will have progress in California by the end of the year.
Awesome.
Any questions on California?
Sunset's a great strategy. For those that don't know what sunset is, sunset doesn't happen in every state. Like in Kentucky, we don't have it. But when I was in Colorado, we had sunset, and there was some strategies there. Like we were able to get students, the ability to adjust. So instead of running a standalone bill, you just include it. And it's, again, if it's the sunset, the bill isn't passed, that profession ends, and that's not going to happen. So it's going to pass. I'm curious, again, I'm sorry, I probably read too much legislative things, and you may talk about this as far as strategy goes, but I did read some of that language in California, and it did talk about it was like treatment for the first 8 weeks or something like that.
So
is that part of the strategy that you're going to talk about? The
it's
concessions?
probably going to go away. That came in because we were told in California, they have something that I am glad is nowhere else in the country, but they have these committee liaisons. So there are these staffers that work on behalf of the committee, and they're there forever. They've been there forever. They really have more control than the legislators do, in my opinion, because I'm not even talking to the chair of the committee. I'm talking to these individuals. And every time I try to talk to the chair, they're like, well, did you talk to these guys? I'm like, you're the legislator, for crying out loud. Why am I talking? These staffers should be doing what you want them to do. But anyway, they came back to us and said, listen, there's no way this is going to get through if the vets aren't involved. So one of our strategy was we wanted to remove the hurdle to getting the animals seen by the chiropractor. So that language you're referring to was a suggestion in this new bill that if for whatever reason that animal has not been to a vet within a year, they have to go see a vet within 8 weeks of their first treatment with the chiropractor, so that the vet can at least be a part of that decision process. But we weren't waiting on a referral. We weren't waiting on supervision, which would hinder the access to care. So it was just something we were throwing out to see, would this make them happy? Because you and I both know once the care was delivered, chances of that stopping at that point are going to be slim to none, because the owners are already going to see some change in the animal, and they'll fight hell and high water with the vet to make sure that they get what they need to continue. So it was just well, at least it doesn't stop us from starting care, but it still requires the vet to be involved. So that takes away us trying to replace the vet. So, well, surprisingly, the Vet Association came out staunchly afraid, stating that, well, that is even worse. And so I don't know that that'll stay in the version that gets into the sunset, but,
Wait
and
a
I will
minute.
explain,
You're encouraging them to go see their vet and they're worried about that? You're literally
they're worried that,
encouraging collaboration and they're worried about that? That's
listen, I've
awesome.
testified in California 3 times now, and they are adamant that there's a danger to chiropractors seeing animals, even though there's not one claim in the state of Texas. There's not one claim in all United States, which we've supplied letters from malpractice carriers. We've asked them to give one real case where a certified chiropractor did anything negative to any animal. Give me one animal owner that's had a certified chiropractor, and they can't provide anything. And I've even, one of our arguments, if you are someone that fights this kind of stuff in your state, we also have states like Oklahoma's going on 20 some years that they have allowed direct access. There's not been one attempt to change that legislation in 21 years. There's not been one claim that we're aware of to the board or to any malpractice carrier for any chiropractor that's treated. And we've got 9 states now that have direct access. And again, not one piece of legislation has been attempted to be corrected. And there's not been one claim to the chiro board nor to the malpractice carrier. And that's multiple decades. So if there was a danger associated, that would have vetted out by now through those states that already allow it, right? So when I testify and I explain that to a state, and these vet associations and boards are just like, no, it's too dangerous. They don't know how to know if the adjustment's necessary or not. They don't have the training, yada, yada, yada. So it's a lot of just propaganda. It's a lot of just control. But in California, we do have 2 vets that sit on the House side. So it's one of those things that if it's just not going to get through. They're pretty influential. It's again, the youth of chiropractic not having chiropractors that are legislators. It's a problem when we have these specialty specific bills. They're going to default to whoever's in Congress that has a knowledge in that area, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. And of course, darn well the association has propped up their legislator, so they're never going to do anything that isn't. So this is where compromise comes in, which I'll talk about as we get into Maine and Washington. But yeah, we good on California?
Yes.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Awesome. So Maine, man, I love Maine. Maine is so great. Their association's been amazing. Bob is their executive director there, and what a champion he has been, and really strong doctors up there as well, especially in this area of animal chiropractic. So we spent a lot of time at the end of last year, early into this year, with language. We supplied them with everything. They did a great job representing it. Their lobbyists did a really good job. But that came down again to where there was a legislator that was within a vet that was very loyal to the vet associations. And the issue was referral again. And in Maine, there was really no language whatsoever. So the focus was to create language on the chiropractic side so that, to do all the things I've already talked about. Well, there was obviously a massive pushback. We thought we had agreement on everything. We massaged the language. It was pretty much exactly what we wanted. But in the end, they were like, there has to be referral. And so I obviously am against that, because I deal with that in states like Texas and other states where referrals become a real problem because they don't come in, it creates a burden. And the same thing happened in Washington. I actually got this idea from Lori Grassi, who is the lobbyist in Washington state. They were pushing, and it came down again. They had a legislator that's a vet. And she came up with a great workaround that I'm actually using now. So I want to give full credit to Lori Grassi, and Maine did the same thing. They said, okay, we'll do referral, but there's a 48-hour mandatory response time from the vet. If the vet doesn't respond, then we're just going to take assumptive permission. So essentially, if the vet takes too long, then we don't get a reply within 48 hours. So you can schedule the appointment. The animal owner can go to the vet, ask for the referral. If there's not a response within 48 hours, then they can still go and get it because it's presumptive permission because they didn't meet the requirement. So 2 things are going to happen with that. One, which is what's typically going to happen? They're not going to respond because they're not going to care. The vets in the field don't really have an issue with this. It's the vet associations and the vet boards. As you guys know, you guys do animal all the time. Most of the vets in the community love you guys. You are a huge asset to them. So this isn't going to be an issue. We can just get it passed through law. This is not going to be a big issue, with the exception of a couple pain in the butt vets in general. But for the mass of the profession, it's not going to be an issue. But one of two things are going to happen. It's going to be the presumptive authorization, meaning they didn't respond within the 48 hours. Or if they do try to stop the referral, we're at least going to start seeing what they're using as their reason. The second part of what Lori did that I think is fantastic is it's a mandatory 2-year review on that bill, meaning in 2 years, we're going to have all the data from what's happened with that mandatory referral. And we're going to be able to show 96% of them, no one responded. Can we please remove this and take that burden off the animal owner? Or here's all of the ridiculous reasons that they've blocked it. And this is dumb. And the animal owners can testify, I had to find a new vet because my vet was being an idiot, and I had to find one that would make the referral. So either way, there's a time limit that doesn't restrict access to care, and there's a mandatory review of the bill language within 2 years so that we have the data to hopefully pull that referral requirement using the data that came from the first set. So I actually thought that was brilliant. In Washington State, they had it all the way. They got it through the Senate unanimously, got it into the House, and then it was just politics in Washington. It had nothing to do with this bill, but the person that was writing it didn't do a favor for someone else, so it never made the floor. But it is going back through this year with that way, and they expect it to fly through because it already went through. Maine, we hit that hurdle. I gave them that suggestion from what we saw happening in Washington, and that seemed to appease them in Maine as well. So we expect that thing to get through before the end of summer. So I'm not happy with those types of concessions, but that's one I can live with because it at least gives us there's a pathway there, right? You have 48 hours to respond. Most of them aren't going to respond, so we can check the box, move on. And it's required within 2 years to look at that. So at least it creates a pathway now, and it talks about animal chiropractic on the chiro side, which is really our primary goal. So I love the creativity that we're finding as we go through these things. And again, that was one of the most brilliant workarounds Lori did. She's got a great mind for this stuff. And it's one we're using in other parts of the country. We may end up using that in California if we can't get it through any other way. But so we've got a lot of movement there, and those are the states that legislatively. I will tell you, Pennsylvania is going to be moving this year. They have a sunset. They're redoing their whole scope, and animal chiropractic's in that. That's going to go this year. Michigan, we're working with now. Florida is going to start working on the issue now. There's a lot of confusion in Florida between It was a letter that was written by the attorney general that is being misunderstood on both sides. So we're just looking to create clarity in Florida. And as you guys know, the horse world in Florida is only second to Kentucky. So it's going to be, exactly. So that's going to be an interesting one and a huge win for us to get codified language in Florida. I also I'm all the way in Puerto Rico. I'm actually headed to Puerto Rico tomorrow, and I'm going to be working with them there in Puerto Rico to do language. We have Illinois starting to pick up, which is going to be a huge state to get done. So I think right now I have 18 states that we're at some level, not counting the main 4 we just talked about, that are at some level of moving this thing through. And I get new people every day, asking me. I will tell you Georgia, because you brought Georgia up. Georgia was an interesting animal there for a little while. The chiro board, not the vet board, but the chiro board got a bee in their bonnet out of nowhere in Georgia, started sending these cease and desist letters. Well, they were threatening. They weren't even cease and desist letters. What they were emails telling them a cease and desist letter was coming. So we immediately kind of started contacting some people and reaching to some attorneys, and we were going to defend those chiropractors down there, because Georgia's always kind of been a look the other way state. No, there's not solid language on the vet side or the chiro side in Georgia. There's just that little phrase in the vet language where it says something to the effect of mobilization manipulation. And again, that I will argue till the day is gone, that is not a chiropractic adjustment. I even got some great research from Heidi Hoag validating that a specific chiropractic adjustment is drastically different than a mobilization manipulation. So we've got a lot of ammunition to support that argument. What it ended up being, in my opinion, was it was just a board member that got a bee in his bonnet, and he was just abusing his role because, one, none of these people ever actually received the cease and desist letter that they were told they were going to get. They received letters warning them, but not an actual, enforceable cease and desist letter. And now we haven't heard anything for 3 months. Like, it's just dead. So we put some pressure on the board, asking them what they were doing, why they were doing it, where they were coming from, what changed. But again, that's a perfect example of why we're doing the work we're doing. When we leave it vague like that, that's all it takes is one board member on the vet side or one board member on the chiro side to not like it. And all of a sudden it can create havoc because the language is very vague in the state. It's all determined on the enforcement agencies, how they choose to read that and enforce it. And so we're trying our best. Our goal is still by the end of 28 to have all 50 states have similar language as it relates to animal chiropractic, just so that we're not left to the interpretation of somebody that's on a vendetta. So, but Georgia, we're still working. We just started working with the GCA. They've agreed to work with us to start working on language. And one of our commitments as an organization is we're never going to go into a state without at least attempting to work with the association. I used to run a state association. I'm very loyal to state associations, and I don't ever want to tread on anyone's turf. Our goal is to do most of the heavy lifting for them so they don't have to burn their political chips or they don't have to spend a bunch of money. We'll do most of that work for them. And I really do have it all tied up in a nice little bow now, all the supporting evidence, all the sample language. We've been doing this long enough now that we're pretty good. I fly in and become the expert witness on a lot of this stuff. And so, our goal again is to continue to push this through. And we have momentum now. We had the 2 states that changed last year. I imagine we're going to have 2 to 3 states this year that will change. My goal is next year to have 5 or 6 because the momentum is there. And as you start seeing that, it's easier to argue that in the legislature when you're like, this is the trend. And it makes it harder for the vets to really stop it when there's been that much momentum. So that's a huge goal by the end of 28, but I do believe that we've got a chance of getting it done.
I love it. Okay, so one of the questions is you said there's several states that have some not so clear languaging in the bill and it kind of leaves us in this gray area. So, what would you recommend for those chiropractors who are in states that have very gray and not clear legal standing? Like what can they do to protect themselves just in case something comes down
So
like you said in Georgia?
as far as protecting themselves right now, if there's not a problem, they're probably okay. Like just keep doing what you're doing. But I would love for you to reach out to me. I really don't go into a state unless someone asks me. Again, that's another one of our rules. I don't want to be the guy that's just doing my own agenda. Like I really we don't start working on a problem until someone brings it to our attention. So if you're listening to this and you're in a state where you're like, yeah, I can't get any clear opinion on this, please reach out to me. You'll have my information through the information of this podcast and let's talk about it. We may already be working on it and I can get you plugged into the group of people we're already working with. Whenever we go into a state, we create what's called a fire team. And they're my core group of people of the boots on the ground in that particular state. And then we start working with the association. Then we start working with the licensing board. And then we'll start working with the legislature. So there's a process that we've proven works to get this done. It takes about a year to a year and a half to really get it moving, depending on the obstacles that we might face. Yeah, but if you're in a state that's vague and there's not issues, so here's another perfect example. North Carolina is another state that we are working with them. But right now, if you contacted the licensing board in North Carolina, they'll tell you if you're certified, you're okay to treat animals. But yet the vet board still keeps filing suits against chiropractors stating that they're practicing vet med without a license, even though there's a letter from the chiro board saying, no, if you're licensed, you're good. North Carolina's scope does not say human only. So the licensing board has said, if you've gotten the education through the certification, then we agree you're capable and able to do that as a chiropractor. Well, the vet board disagrees. So we need to get it codified, right? That's the opinion of that chiro board right now, but that could change. You could get someone else that gets in there and that board could change that interpretation. So, and we need language in the code set so it stops the vet board. Like they're harassing a chiropractor right now in North Carolina. And my heart's breaking for her because she's going to win, but they're going to bleed her until it gets to that point. Now, luckily we've talked to her attorney and she knows what she's doing. That her attorney is actually the one that defended the other 2 people prior. They're going to end up having to pay for her legal fees in the end, but it's still annoying, right? But if there was language in the code set, then that they wouldn't be able to do that. And the case would never be taken up. So those are the things we're trying to fix in those states. So unless there's attention like we saw in Georgia, where all of a sudden the chiro board's going after them, then I wouldn't live in fear. I don't believe in living in fear. keep doing what you're doing and know you're not alone. If something does happen, reach out to us and we'll definitely support you. But yeah, we just got to keep slowly bringing the states on board as we move across.
That's all really awesome. I feel your pain. In Kentucky, they wanted to do, I forget if I mentioned this on our last episode, but they wanted to do that 2-day thing going back to Washington and Maine. It was 3 business days for us. And we got that removed for, they were worried about a liability piece. So they took
Mhm.
that out as long as we added liability language that it rests with the chiropractor, which it should anyways. But
Yeah, agreed.
yeah, but that was one strategy that we were able to get direct access here in Kentucky. So again, I know
Good.
you love,
I
hate it,
love
but
everything about Kentucky other than it being under the vet board. That's the only part I
I
don't like.
know. I know. I could do a whole talk on it, but
I know you could.
yeah. And I probably will in just about, 5 weeks in
Yeah.
Cozumel. So before we get to the call to action from anyone, just kind of like a general thing, we've had some listeners here. Some people might be brand new to learning about lobbying and things like that, but and some people may have heard every single one of our episodes, which is fantastic, or follow you, religiously. So just kind of wanted you to chat a little bit about testifying and, having that dual profession like chiros and vets who are both certified animal chiropractic. Does that create any challenges or potential make it easier, or well, I wouldn't say easier, but how does that play into your lobbying, having 2 different professions? Do you have vets who come to help testify on behalf of the animal chiropractic as well in your back pocket? And just talk about that a little more.
Yeah. So great question. I'm a little annoyed you ask it, but it is a good question.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I always get myself in trouble here. So let me be very, very clear before I answer it. I love our vets. I really do. Like my daughter is a certified animal chiropractor. We do a lot of work here in our practice. We just got done going to a vet office doing a little training for them and their team on animal chiropractic, so just so they understood it. I have mad respect for veterinarians. I have mad respect for their knowledge, their training, their education. So nothing I'm about to say is in any way a condemnation of veterinarians, but I don't care about the vets. That's not my job. My job's about the chiropractors. And human nature is people are always going to CYA. And so my problem with even our friendly vets, when it comes down to it, every time we thought we could depend on them to testify in our cross examination, they're always CYAing. And they're always like, well, yeah, they don't really have this training, or yeah, they don't. Because even our friendly vets don't understand chiropractic, even if they're certified. They don't really understand, because depending on what school you went to, whether you got true philosophy around chiropractic or not. So like you may understand the technique in the art side of it, but you don't understand the philosophy and science. And so that's the problem that I have encountered with the vets. We do have a lot of vets that have written letters saying they love working with the chiropractor. They've never had any issue, and that is fantastic, and we'll always do that. But it has been very difficult. This is in a large part why we've had issues getting the AVCA or the IVCA to really take a stand, because their members are both chiropractors and vets, and they're not going to draw a line in the sand if it hurts or appears to harm any of their members. So they've got to stay neutral and agnostic, because they're like, all we're going to validate is our certification. That's it. We're not going to pick sides, or we're not going to get into the legislature of a state, because, excuse me, half of our certified individuals don't need any legislative change. The other half do. So it has created some complexity for sure to this issue as we get into states. So my rule of thumb has always been this falls entirely on the chiros. The vets, there's not a state in America, which other than New Hampshire, which people argue with me about this, I still interpret New Hampshire's language as the best, stating that it doesn't matter who you are, you must be certified in animal chiropractic to do it. I don't know that that's how New Hampshire is going to actually enforce it, but that is how it reads. And that includes vets and chiros. Like vets should not be doing animal chiropractic if they don't have a certification. That's not what we push, because I'm not here to restrict veterinarians. I'm here to make sure that chiropractors are handled properly. But when it comes to lobbying, when it comes to legislating these things, the first thing you have to understand is it has nothing to do with the truth. It's all about relationships. You've got to, if you do this long enough, you realize the best of intention of legislators are still going to do what's best for them. And they're not going to go against somebody that's already been supporting their campaign, that's already big with their party. So this is really about stakeholder meetings. This is really about constituents. It's really about getting as much of a movement as you can, being very creative and strategic like we are in California by moving it into the sunset, by knowing that it's going to take maybe 1 or 2, 3 sessions to get it done, but we're going to force that conversation to be done. It's very easy in the lobbying world to get very frustrated and burnt out, because there's a lot of work and then nothing happens and then you got to start over, or your key person that was carrying the legislation for you got voted out and now you got to find somebody else and start over educating them on the bill. It can be quite tedious. I just truly believe it's what's best for animal owners, it's what's best for veterinarians, and it's what's best for chiros. We are not asking for anything that does not create harmony amongst all three areas. And we are finding the vets, every time they try to fight against us, they just look dumber and dumber because we can really refute every one of their objections that they have the longer we talk about it. So, and that's kind of what's happening in California. The more they object, the more they look stupid. And so, it's one of these things we just got to wear them out. And we got to be aware of it. And it's not about the harm coming to chiropractors. It's about a massive need of we have a shortage of veterinarians. We have way more animals due to things like COVID and all these other things and people and breeding and all this stuff. There needs to be some relief for these animal owners and their animals. And as long as it's a licensed body, that's what makes it amazing for us. Chiropractors are physician level. And when they get to 210 plus hours, it's very hard to state that we don't have the education. And then with our 20 plus years of a track record of not causing any harm, it really is a fun thing to argue. So when I go in and fight these things, I'm never worried because I just feel like I have so much ammunition. Anything they're going to use against us, we're going to be able to combat. So, but to answer your initial question, it is a little hard with the vets because I love them, but multiple times we thought they were on our side. And when push comes to shove, they're not going to do anything to bring heat on them. They're not going to do anything that's going to make them a target. And, their support's only going to go so far, and rightfully so. It would be the same way on the flip side, honestly. If this was a vet issue and chiros were supporting them, most people, when it comes down to it, they do not want crosshairs on their back in their practice. And so therefore they're going to back down a little bit. And then that hurts us when that's our star witness. And then they fold under pressure in cross-examination. So that's kind of where we're at on that. It is a fun thing to lobby, though. Everyone cares about their animals. And when we can supply all the evidence we can to the effectiveness, the safety, the efficacy, it becomes a fun thing to lobby.
Yeah, that's really awesome. All right, so let's get into the call to action, Baron. How can we help you? What do you need? You know, if animal chiropractors are out there in states that aren't one of the 18 that you're already working in, what can they do? Tell us how we can support you guys.
First and foremost is organization is power. Everyone thinks that money is the number one thing we need, and it's not. The number one thing we need is people organized. And so we have a database. If you can go to our website at onechiropractic.org, you can do the tab for animal chiropractic. You don't have to give us a penny, but if you just hit our thing, then you're going to get updates from us and you're going to get real-time information on this type of stuff. The power for us is if we're in a state and we have a weird opportunity, we've had this happen before, where all of a sudden someone gives me a call, like the thing in Texas when this board thing came up and it was like, here's the thing, here's what we need. We need everyone sending a letter now. I can go through my database, hit Texas, and it goes out to, 150 people. That's what I need, number one. The animal chiropractic space is too small to be as segmented as it is. We have to work. It was a whole issue with you guys, right? That's why you guys amped up and made the changes you did as an organization, because there needed to be a trade association for animal chiropractors. We're not a trade association. We're legal and legislative, but there's a lot of other needs that are necessary for this space to support them and connect them and engage them. And that's what's so amazing about the Academy. So, but people need, for whatever reason, chiropractors do not naturally organize. They love to segregate and point fingers and judge and all that other garbage. The animal space, we cannot afford to do that. We're too small. I'm going to still argue we're 2,000, maybe a little over 2,000 people that do animal chiropractic as a large part of their practice. No way that we can be in groups of 50. Like, it just can't happen. We have got to all be together on this. And so that's number one ask. Go to our website, just get in our database. Secondly, obviously, what we do requires a lot of money. Thankfully, we've had a number of people that have done little fundraisers for us. A shout out to Petra and Katie for putting together that Freedom Rally not too long ago. I raised over $20,000, which is awesome and much needed. Our ask is just $33 a month. That just helps us to continually sustain these legal and legislative battles as we're flying people, hiring lobbyists, doing all the things that we do. That would be the other ask. But more than anything, I just need people connected. Like, still right now, I've been doing this for 4.5, 5 years. I've been on every podcast. I've gone everywhere I can. I still only have 200 people in our database that have raised their hand about animal chiropractic, which is infuriating to me, because that's like, I know there are a lot more than that, and I know there are people. I mean, Katie on her social media, I think she's over like 800, that are on her making strides. And so I just want, and it's not that I'm, sending marketing materials to people. It's about when something's happening. I want you staying informed and not hearing things through the grapevine. Don't we all remember how much fun it was when the whole thing of the diplomate came out and how confused everyone was because it was a freaking telephone game?
That
Like
was
that
so
stuff can
fun.
be stopped one time by just everyone being in one place, trusting a source that's going to give you the facts, right? And so that's what I'm trying to stop. There's a lot of telephone game in the animal chiropractic space, a lot of people making assumptions and interpreting things wrong. Even with the thing in Texas, we had people freaking out, but they didn't read all of the thing. And so they were making assumptions again because that's not what they do every day. So we just want to help be that place that if you hear something, reach out to us. I'll tell you if it's true or not. I guarantee you I have feelers everywhere. I'll almost 99% of the time know exactly what's going on. If not, I'll figure it out. But we just got to get away from creating more drama for ourselves than necessary. Number one, get on our database. Number two, if you so choose, we could definitely use your financial support as we're continuing to fight these battles.
Yeah, that all sounds awesome. A couple of fun questions just because you've talked about so much today. And again, it's all super hot and super relevant, right? The main stuff was in April. Texas was just a couple weeks ago. California was just a couple weeks ago. All the stuff is hot right now. So, what gives you the most optimism where we're at today?
Yeah, it's gonna get done. I mean, there really is a lot. Every time we hit an obstacle, there seems to be another opening that's there. Again, like this thing in Texas, that looked really scary there for half a second, but then it opened up the eyes of the Cairo board, which we hadn't got their attention yet, and so now they're on board with it. So yeah, I just ultimately optimized that our world is starting to understand chiropractic better in general. This animal chiropractic space is so exciting. It's just such a fascinating thing for people. It's a new shiny object, and so as we continue to talk about it, more people are like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea." And the more that people get it and they see the power of it, it's fun. This is a fun area where all the other stuff I fight, whether it's regulations on x-rays or pediatric restrictions or overreaching and regulate, those things get really exhausting. This animal chiro stuff is just, it's a lot of fun for me because it's really a win-win-win for everybody. Nobody's losing in the work that we're trying to do, even though the vets think they are. But and animal chiros for the most part are pretty high motivated people that are ready to do what needs to be done to get it across the finish line. So I really believe the pendulum is swinging and healthcare as a whole and chiropractic is going to be in an amazing place here in the next, 3 to 5 years. So all the work we're doing now is just setting the preparation for that.
Yep, that's awesome. One fun question for you before we wrap up. I think last time we asked you what your favorite song was or something like that, which was I did listen to it. But this time, so what's something people would be surprised to learn about the life of? I called you a chiropractic hobbyist in my notes, but in the life of this, what's something fun and that you'd want to share with the world about this journey?
Yeah, these always throw me for a loop because there's Rachel knows me probably better than anyone else and knows that I work hard and I play hard. I am
I mean, yes.
Yeah, I'm just in that phase of life where my kids are chiropractors, so they're growing up, doing their thing, and I'm divorced. I just kind of have me and my dog, and that's pretty much all I have. I will tell you, probably the coolest thing about the work that I get to do is the places I get to go, the people I get to meet, and the shit that I can get myself into. Because I'm really open for anything. And I'm a firm believer that in life, if you allow yourself to be open to opportunities, you're going to end up in crazy, amazing places. And I end up in just because my answer is typically yes. When I'm in a situation, hey, you want to go do this? I'm like, yeah, I don't know what the means, but yeah, let's go do it. And I end up meeting incredible people. I end up going and doing incredible things, and I'm excited. So it's the people I get to meet and the places I get to go. Those are something. And a little secret thing about me, I love to sing. I'm a singer, and so I end up getting on crazy stages and singing. I get to do crazy things with people as I travel the world. And yeah, so if you're ever around a karaoke and I'm around, Rachel's heard me. She knows I love me a good microphone. So yeah, I would say that's probably my big. I like to have a good time and make memories that I can only tell a couple people about.
Or share in every single Uber that we ever get into with the cab driver, Uber driver. I wish that joke was appropriate for a podcast, but it is absolutely
Yeah,
not.
that's Gary DeGrado's fault, not mine. I was given that joke, and I was told. So for those of you who don't know, I joined the Cairo Congress board. Gosh, now almost 10, 11 years ago. And I took over the place of a gentleman that had been on it for a long time. And he pulled me aside. He's like, all right, I'm handing over a tradition to you. Here's this joke, but you have to tell it. At that time, we were still in taxis. He's like, you have to tell it in every taxi you get into. So my friends that have traveled with me over the years have heard me tell this joke probably 1,000+ times. But unfortunately, it is not a joke I'm going to put on a recording. So if you want to know it, you're going to have to reach out to me and I'll be happy to tell it to you. But I am not putting evidence on recording of that joke.
Nope, that would be edited out anyways, even if you did record it.
I have a lot of reasons for getting canceled, but that would be a big one. So I'm not, I'm not doing that, but it is a good joke.
Yep, it definitely is. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like totally take over this whole episode, but Karen and Byron, y'all have anything last minute for Baron? This has been a 50-minute episode. It's been great information again on everything that's happening today. Yeah.
Yeah,
Luckily, right?
I got here late, so I'm just a fly on the wall learning right now, getting caught up. So I
And it's
appreciate
will-
moving
it.
quickly.
Not to prolong this, but I will. When I first got involved with this, that was the number one problem everyone said is nobody's paying attention to animal chiropractic and nothing's happening. We can't say that anymore. I mean, there it is. It is probably one of, and Rachel gets to go to a lot of the meetings that I get to go to, and I talk about it to everybody all the time about what's happening with animal chiropractic. It is on the radar for the profession as a whole. It's on the radar of state associations. People know that it exists as a specialty. So that's one of the proudest thing I would think I can say that we've had the effect on our organization is really bringing this issue to the limelight of the profession as a whole. Even to the point that NCMIC gave us a bunch of money to help with this cause, Chiro Secure did. So we have some of the bigger organizations that are saying, okay, we see what you're doing. We see that need. They both write policies for animal chiropractic. So they have a direct, gain to this as well of having states clear up language so they don't have to do as much defense. So it was, I'm proud of that fact that we have definitely shown a light on animal chiropractic and the profession knows that it's an issue that needs to be resolved.
I was going to make a comment on something. I'm in Colorado, so I'm kind of living the good life in the grand scheme of things for animal chiropractic. But thanks to you guys for setting that up for me.
That's
But
all right.
yeah, right. I will mention something to what was said earlier on the language of mobilization, manipulation versus a chiropractic adjustment. Again, in the world of where I have veterinarians that do manipulation and then, myself, that my whole practice is animal chiropractic. I don't work with humans anymore. I only work with animals. The results will speak for itself when it comes to people understanding what the difference is between someone that does it for a living and a specialized approach for a structural correction versus just a general mobilization. So like sometimes I feel like we get hung up on the words, but if you educate your patients well enough, they completely understand just based off the results.
Yeah. 100% agree from a patient perspective. Where we run into the issue is the legality of, is a chiropractor truly practicing vet med, because they're using that term mobilization manipulation. So you're 100% right. I would never worry about the results of the actual care, but I can't handle chiropractors still being regulated under false understanding of terminology. But you're 100% right. Yeah, 100% right.
Cool. Well, I think that's all the questions. Again, we'll try to get Baron on. I really like trying to bring you on once a quarter because, again, things moving so quickly. So if Maine's doing stuff, by July, I'd love to get that update sometime this summer. And, especially Texas too, you said sometime around that realm. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I hope this was super helpful. And again, if you haven't signed up, at least go sign up for his emails. I get his emails. That's where we get our videos from too. Takes 2 seconds to sign up for that. I'll put the link below for you guys. So Baron, I appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks so much, guys. God bless.